Hello, my name is Segalla. Welcome to Taxpayer Alert. This is the 7th in our series of programs, and our guest this session is Heather Gass. And Heather, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a realtor, I'm a mother, I'm very concerned about private property rights, of course. As a realtor, I'm very involved, and I started my own group called Citizens Town Hall, and you can find us on the web at www.citizenstownhall.org. And we help groups put on town halls to inform others about issues that are going on in their community.
I understand. One of the things you've become an expert on over the years is sustainable development, and I think you title some of your talks, "The Dark Side of Sustainable Development." Is that true?
Well, it is true, and because I think we use the word sustainable loosely, and I think most people have a different understanding of the word, and in terms of how it's applied. I mean, we talk about sustainable yogurt now, and I think people don't really understand what that means. So, but there's legislation that is forcing us down a path for sustainable communities, and it's not as good as it may sound, and that's really what I'm concerned about and letting people know about.
I understand. One of the things you're concerned with is SB 375. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that.
Well, SB 375 was passed in 2008, and without a vote of the people, I might add, and it will completely transform forever California and all of our communities, and very few people know about it. It calls for an unelected, unaccountable bureaucracy and land use planning at the regional level to create a land use plan throughout California for all of our communities, and links that to transportation. So it's land use and transportation. And the idea is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we need to all live in high density stack and pack housing. And I say that because that's the model. A sustainable community defined in SB 375 is a minimum of 20 units per acre. 20 units per acre, high density housing within a half mile of transit. And that is a cookie cutter solution that is going to be applied to all of our communities across the state.
That sounds pretty extensive. What about people that don't want their properties to be made into a 20-unit apartment house? They'd rather have a little home.
Well, SB 375 defines sustainable communities as a minimum of 20 units per acre, and there isn't anything in the bill that allows for redevelopment in the future for single-family residential homes. And I'm not against high-density housing. I'm a realtor. I mean, I'd be happy to sell somebody, a unit, and there's plenty of places that people can go if they want to live in that lifestyle of walkability and high density. But there really isn't any choice here. And these plans are being made and then handed down to the local cities and towns. And, if local cities and towns don't go along with this regional style planning, they won't get their transportation funding.
Is the priority development area part of this system?
Well, PDAs, priority development areas, are the focal point for the development. So in every county, there are going to be priority development areas. So some cities, and it's generally the downtown area of a town, and that becomes the redevelopment area, the priority development area, where the high density, minimum 20 units per acre type development will occur. I mean, that's where it's expected.
I see. And I understand there's a priority conservation area as well?
That's right. So throughout properties that are not in the priority development area but are outside of that sphere will be included potentially in priority conservation areas, creating a wildlife corridor system throughout California. So even through our urban areas, it's pretty amazing.
It's hard to believe that such extensive things can go on without the public being aware of it.
Well, these plans have been going on for a long time, and I agree with you. You know, these are going to be massively have massive implications and change on private property rights. You know, when you add high-density housing in areas where there isn't transit, and that's one of the things that this does, you're going to impact people's the city's schools, safety, fire, and none of that is included in this bill as to how we're going to pay for it. Most of this is just going to be subsidized by the taxpayers of the local cities and towns, and most people don't know about it. There wasn't the public outreach that there should have been in this type of plan.
I understand that the counties and cities don't notify the property owners when there's going to be a general plan change and let them know what changes are happening with their property.
Well, you know, this plan, SB 375, is actually done at the regional level. So the cities and counties don't even know what these plans are. Our general plan, our regional plan, this is the first ever plan. It's never been done. This is a brand new bill. I mean, there's no such thing as regional government, yet we have unelected bureaucrats now creating these regional plans, and those will overlay onto the local plans. And as I said, the local cities and towns, you know, generally have to go along with it or they won't get their transportation funds. And the people that have the private property won't know what's happened until it's done.
Oh, that's kind of scary. How will the sustainable community strategy affect schools, safety, and other associated services?
Well, as I said before, creating high-density housing in urban areas or even in non-urban areas. I mean, these PDAs, priority development areas, are supposed to be within a half mile of transit. I'll use my town as an example. There's a PDA in my town and we have no transit. We're 7 miles to the nearest BART station. But yet we're expected to create this high-density housing everywhere in our downtown over the next 30 years. And there is no funding for, you know, the infrastructure around that. When you add that many more people, you have to provide schools and safety and fire and utilities and water, and none of that has been factored into this. So it's going to be the burden of the taxpayer in the city and town.
It looks like it would be a good deal for developers that are building in those special areas. Apparently, do they have to follow the standards of CEQA and those rules?
Well, that's a good question. You know, one of the things that this bill touted was the fact that in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, you know, creating high-density housing next to mass transit would get people out of their cars and, you know, therefore be better for the environment. But like I said, in my town, if you just take that as an example, adding high-density housing where there is no transit is not going to get people out of their cars. And the developers themselves are going to get waivers. So people think, well, this is going to be better for the environment. Well, if it is, why are all the developers going to get CEQA waivers, which means they don't have to do any California Environmental Quality Act analysis on cars and trucks or greenhouse emissions? They're going to get waivers on all of that. So I don't know. It doesn't look like it to me.
Well, will this development displace existing businesses and renters?
Well, yeah. You know, when you have to redevelop a downtown that is already in existence, which is basically what's happening, you are going to displace existing businesses and existing private property owners and renters. And in some areas, low-income renters are the ones that are going to be hurt. You know, so large areas are going to have to be redeveloped. And so what happens to those people? I mean, what is the plan to keep from displacing the very people that you say that this bill claims to help?
Well, I think the U.S. Constitution has a provision where if government takes property from the people or the use of the property from the people, they need to compensate the property owner for taking their property. But I don't think that's happening here.
Well, there's another bill that's coming up too, and that it's the funding arm, and it's Senate Bill 1, and it was introduced this last session, and it didn't go to the governor, but it's probably going to come back. And it's the scariest part of this process because it's the funding arm for SB 375. But the main thing that really scares me is the fact that cities and counties can actually create a joint power authority, and that joint power authority can, without declaring blight, they do not have to declare blight, they can use a legislative definition of inefficient land use pattern in order to take someone's property and redevelop it. So that should put everybody on notice that if what's inefficient, there's no real definition for that. And this body is then going to be in charge of defining whether you're using your property to its best and highest use. And if it's not following the sustainable community strategy of minimum 20 units per acre, then according to them, it's not. And so that's very scary.
Who's going to manage and control these plans?
Well, that's the thing. These unelected planners in the Bay Area, our land use agency, regional land use agency is ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Governments, and there's 82 planners making over $11 million a year.
Oh, wow.
Unelected planners. That's just the land use side. And then we have the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, which handles the transportation side. And I don't know how many planners they have, but their payroll is over 27 million. So those people are going to be deciding what's best for the Bay Area, 9 counties and 101 cities. And across the state, there are COGs, councils of government, which are basically those same bodies that are going to be regionally deciding the same type of plan for cities and counties throughout the state.
Wow. Did the voters of California vote for this or have any say?
Well, I didn't. Did you?
No.
I don't remember voting for this. I don't remember voting for the people who are doing this, and that's the thing. Is, we've got all of these unelected, unaccountable bureaucracies that are extremely well funded now and very powerful, making decisions. And my regional agencies, our regional agencies, and our plan, One Bay Area Plan, I think it's up to $300 billion. And so that's transportation money that's now being held over the top of the heads of the local cities and counties. So, we're now beholden to these regional agencies. If we don't go along with it, we don't get our transportation funds.
Well, that comes from our gas tax, which is supposed to go for our roads, for repairing and making new roads. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, we've paid into our taxes, and it goes to the federal government, and the federal government has now figured out a way to bypass our local cities and towns and the checks and balances that we have with our elected officials, and they now fund these unelected bureaucracies and then put them in charge of the planning. And what ends up happening is our local cities and towns the legislators become irrelevant. I mean, they're ceremonial at best, and we, the people, don't have any way to change because we didn't elect them to do this job. And we can't unelect them from that board.
Was the public input on the process fair?
No, it wasn't fair. I've been following this process for 4 years, and I've done a lot of research, and I find that, California was the pilot program for sustainable communities, and it's been in the works for over 20 years. And through a group called Urban Ecology that created the original sustainable community strategy for the Bay Area. These are the NGOs and stakeholder groups are all working together. They formed a compact in 1997 with the Association of Bay Area Governments, and then they held meetings and developed this plan and pushed for legislation, which they finally got in 2008 with SB 375, that then they could turn around and say, we're just doing this because this is a mandate. And they've only really had public input for the last few years. And the outreach process has been just dismal. For the 9 Bay Area counties in the Bay Area, they had one meeting per county, one. And that was for each go-round. And that's what they consider to be sufficient for a Bay Area that they're proposing that has 7 million occupants and will have 9 million in the future. So the meetings are rigged. The process has already been in place. The plan has been in place for a long time. What you find when you go to these meetings is that the decisions have already been made, and really you're just there so that they can check a box that says they provided a venue for a public workshop and move on. And so, no, there's been no public vote. There's been, honestly, I've been touring the city, or touring the state myself on my own dime for the last several years, speaking 2 or 3 times a week, trying to educate people as to what is happening because I'm so concerned about it, and I'm doing their job. And so, I'm just letting people know because I think, we should have a say in our local communities.
In our community, we have a similar problem, and we're going through a general plan update process. And the plan seems to follow much of the protocols of this, I suppose it's Agenda 21, which is being promoted to the Caltrans and with the state. But one of the things that they're doing is they're taking existing land, a lot of land, that presently a person can have 5-acre parcels, and they're changing it to make it 40 acres minimum parcel size for a home. Mm-hmm. What this means is that people that bought land that for their family or for future investment are going to lose that investment. And then we checked and they found the county was not notifying those people, indicating to them what the changes are going to be on the new general plan designation. Well, we put together a committee and hardworking people that volunteers, and we compared the new maps with the existing maps, and we found the parcels that are having these dramatic changes. There were over 1,000 of them, but when we checked to find the addresses of the property owners, we found there was 700 property owners, a little more than 700 property owners. So we sent out posts. We had people donate, including our Association of Realtors, and we mailed postcards to all these people 2 days ago. And we're looking forward to maybe finding people that care about their property rights, that perhaps would communicate with the planning department and maybe with their supervisors, because we're sending it to each of the 5 supervisorial districts. Do you know of anybody else doing this?
Well, I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do, is just notify people that have targets, that have property in these target areas, and get them to wake up because, you purchase property, you expect that the zoning and the usage that you purchased will be what you can use. And to have it changed without any warning, without any indication is just a travesty. And, for most people, land and their property is their biggest asset. So it's unfortunate, but I do the same thing. I love the flyering idea. Citizenstownhall.org is how we do it, and we help other groups do what you're doing, and it's great.
What are the regional agencies and special interest groups that are making all these plans?
What's that?
What are the regional agencies and special interest groups that are making all these plans?
Well, like I said, the councils of government, in the Bay Area, we have 2 main regional bodies. We have the Association of Bay Area Governments, which handles the land use part of it. And then we have MTC, which is the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, which handles the transportation side. They control BART. They control our toll. I mean, these people are extremely well funded on the transportation side. And they've basically gotten together and they formed a compact in 1997 with a bunch of NGOs like the Greenbelt Alliance, the Sierra Club, Transform California, social and environmental justice groups, and builders, big developers. development community is on board with this because they're going to get bonuses for higher densities. They're going to get waivers for environmental waivers. They're going to get the red carpet rolled out. They'll be able to bypass certain local ordinances like height limitations and setbacks and parking. I mean, people don't realize this isn't about saving the planet. We are not going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to any significant level by creating high density housing in the manner that they're going about doing this, just everywhere. You know, and people are not going to give up their cars unless they're forced to, and that's part of this plan. But you know, they're on board with this because there's a lot of money and control and power behind it, and that's really what's happening.
That sounds almost like crony capitalism.
Yeah.
Where some businesses will get favored.
Or fascism, actually,
Yeah.
right? I mean, government and private business.
Yeah, that's true. Probably the most important thing is that most of our representatives do mean well, and I think that there's a lot of ignorance, and mostly among the public, and that's the reason for our Taxpayer Alert TV program, and for the work that we're doing. But there's a lot more than just us that are trying to bring attention to these sort of problems, so that so your children can live in a free society and be prosperous, and that's what bottom line it's all about. It seems like we need to return to the basic constitutional principles that made our country so great. But I think if we had maybe just 10 more Heather Gasses run around this country, we might have a solution to the problem, because you communicate so well. What are some of the things that you've done with your organization?
Well, we've sued the plan. They voted for this plan and passed it under extreme scrutiny. We formed a coalition, a 9 Bay Area county coalition with left and the right. I mean, we have people all over the Bay Area now that are informed and upset, and we unfortunately didn't get the coalition up and running until towards the end of this cycle, and it passed in July. But we're not stopping. We're continuing to provide an outlet for people to learn about what this is, because this is just the beginning. This is the regional plan got adopted. Now they've got to implement it, and that's the thing. Is it sounds like a good idea to reduce greenhouse gases and do all this stuff. Everything sounds like it's good, but when you read their plan, when you actually start looking through it, their own plan says it's not going to do any of those things, and you start realizing what it's going to do to people's private property rights, to the fire and safety and all of the all the other stuff that go along with this. It hasn't been accounted for and has to be paid for. It's not such a great plan. And when they force this on cities and towns that don't even have transportation, it's going to exacerbate the problem. It's going to create more of the problems that they said they were there to solve. And so we've created a successful coalition. We're continuing to fight. The fight's not over. And we're going to just keep lobbying and go forward. And like I said, we're suing the plan. And if people want to help us, they can go to stopplanbayarea.org.
We should have something similar for Calaveras County.
That's right.
We contacted an attorney who had been successful in other counties, in higher density counties, and to see if he would consider helping us pro bono. He hasn't returned our email, so I suspect maybe he might not be able to do that. But one of the things, if an attorney does help a group such as ours, we don't have any money to speak of, they will come in contact with individual property owners that do have money that want to defend their property rights. Not many attorneys see that far. And so
Well, which is why your flyering program is key, because you know what, that is the best way. I honestly have tried so many ways to get people fired up, and I'll tell you, when somebody thinks their private property is at risk and they have a target on their back, they suddenly become engaged in this process, in the fight, and it doesn't matter whether they're on the left or the right. There's no atheists in the foxhole. It really is not about left and right. It's about right and wrong, and that's the message that I'm trying to to get out there is, look, you can, if you love high density housing and that lifestyle, fantastic, go live there. But don't force that on every single community. We have to preserve the characteristics of communities. We have to have local control. We have to have choice. That's the American way.
Yeah, that seems to be true. And that's what our Constitution is all about. It's protecting the rights of life, liberty, and property. And I think the 14th and the Fifth Amendment specify that. And but in order to get there, we have to go through this process of awakening our friends and neighbors and Democrats and Republicans and libertarians to take a look at what's going on. It's not the way it's been originally proposed. Are there other things you've been doing besides your main group?
Well, like I said, I speak 3 or 4 times a week all over the state. I work with the legislature, I lobby. I just spend every waking moment trying to figure out what I can do. I work with my realtors. I educate them. I write letters to my Realtors Association. I'm trying to organize realtors because, this is also, frankly, a disclosure issue. As a realtor, we need to be aware of what's happening in our communities. And if private property that we're selling is going to be at risk of, regulation out of use because it's going into conservation, or it's going to be converted to high-density housing, or whatever situation, we're expected to know, and we're held to a higher standard.
Yeah, also, if the disclosure statement discloses this, the buyer may not buy the property because it'll lose its value. It wouldn't have the value that it would have if he could use it. So then you have the quandary that property owners that don't have a realtor of whether they should disclose that or not. But realtors, of course, have to.
Well, they have to if they know about it.
Yeah. And
that's the thing, is we're supposed to know about it. Being a realtor carries so much responsibility that people don't really understand. We're supposed to know about zoning and all of this other stuff, and really, that's not our job. Right. But unless we're doing research nonstop, it's really difficult to know what's happening. But it's a danger.
Well, apparently there is hope, and the hope seems to be in being able to communicate and to reach as many people as possible that care, so that we can start bringing around the changes. There might be referendums that could be done to overturn some of the planning decisions that are being made. I understand the referendum process is pretty powerful.
Well, that's one way, of course. I think the main thing that I've found that is successful is hosting your own town halls, doing just gumshoe, getting out there, putting some flyers out, getting a hall or pizza place or some place where people gather and informing them as to what's going on and getting them involved. And then start showing up en masse at the planning meetings and city council meetings or your supervisor meetings.
Well, that seems to be what we're trying to do. And one of the things we do, we have quarterly luncheons. And I just thought of an excellent speaker for our next luncheon.
Gee.
I wonder who that could be. Well, we want to thank you for watching our program and invite you to visit our website, calaveras.taxpayers.org. And of course, visit Heather's website, which is
citizenstownhall.org.
citizenstownhall.org. Thank you very much. See you next time.
Thank you. Good job.